Yes, celebration is around us every weekend, because we are about to entertain you with all the latest stories in the world of sports. This is Lagoon Radio, your number one online gospel radio in Nigeria and the official radio of the Anglican Diocese of Lagos, transmitting live from the Diocesan Media Center, 29 Marina, Lagos. Good morning. It's 15th day of April 2023. I am Anosike Chimeze. Of course, I have my regular striker in the studio, Benga Bello. He's here. Benga, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Chimeze. It's good to be here again.
Yes, it's always good to be here. And we'll be giving you all the latest. Monte Carlo Masters is on, and the football news, what transpired in the Champions League and in the Europa League and the Conference League. Also, not forgetting, yes, UFC. This is where we'll be kicking off. Yes, we talked about it last week. Israel Adesanya and Pereira. Good thing, he fought back and won that fight.
Adesanya has come to prove that he doesn't just mouth his abilities. He's able to bring these abilities to the ring when the fight is called. The second round knockout for Adesanya against the Pereira is a no mean feat. Pereira is not a small fry when it comes to big fights. He's beaten Adesanya, I think, twice or so. And going into the fight, I was looking at the pressure on Adesanya. Adesanya had been talking tough prior to that fight, and you will just wonder where he gets that confidence. And he didn't put anybody in that. In fact, immediately the bell sounded, to start the first round, you could see Pereira trying to back him off, and he was slower, knowing that look, this guy is fast, he's quick, he could take him up on any of those punches that could bring you down. And Adesanya only had one thing in his mind, to bring him down. And by the second round, you could see that Pereira was already backing down. Adesanya got it all. The first uppercut that hit Pereira, he never knew what came over. I want to congratulate Israel. He's done marvelously well, and honestly, I think he deserves every accolade for every bragado that he's been going on, about himself.
Okay, after that fight, it appeared that he mocked the son of Pereira. And when he was asked, he said, yes, the first time he was beaten, the son came to him and mocked him. So he tried to remind them, this is what it is.
With Adesanya, you can never take away those outside ring things. Adesanya is an entertainer thoroughly, and he likes to bring fun into the game. When I saw a caricature of a representation of the son where the father stood in between him and Adesanya, and Adesanya is just a complete entertainer, so it's part of those things. And I think we just want to see more of Adesanya. Adesanya will be Adesanya. So the son, sorry son, go and hide behind your daddy.
Okay, again, what does this mean now for Israel Adesanya, and also looking at Kamaru Usman, because he was there that night, they celebrated the victory together. Let's start with Adesanya. What does this mean for Adesanya first?
For Adesanya, it's a consolidation. It's a hold, and he's fared in that weight category. So he had to restate his kingship of that category, and that he has done in style. For Kamaru needs to draw a lot of inspiration from Adesanya. Both of them always attended each other's fights. They try to draw from the Nigerian brotherhood that they both even though they're fighting for other countries, they both draw a lot of inspiration, a lot of strength from the Nigerian psychology. So for Usman, I think it's a fantastic inspiration for him to draw, because I know that he is also calling for a fight with perhaps not a title fight, but he needs all the confidence he can get right now to get him into the top contender shot. So great one from Adesanya for the boost of inspiration for Usman.
A lot of people have called that there should be a fight between Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya. Will we ever see that happen?
That kind of fight, honestly, it might be good for a Nigerian, maybe to display a Nigerian or to celebrate something that is Nigerian, maybe on an Independence Day, have both of them come into the Nigerian ring, and have, because already we've started seeing UFC fights in Nigeria, and so both of them could use it to encourage and develop talents here, and I believe that it will be a massive shutdown in a place like Lagos if both of them, but it will be nice to just see them have a spar or a friendly, but it will be difficult to have a title shot at the international scene between both of them because I'm not sure they're in the same weight category. So, but I mean, for a Nigerian, to celebrate a Nigerian psychology, unfortunately, there's an Adesoya who was heard saying that, look, there's a lot of corruption in Nigeria, even though my people are very good. So that's a negative from a perception point of view. But then it won't be too bad to have both of them, square off.
Okay, we'll cross over to tennis, and it's hitting up at the Monte Carlo. Tsitsipas and Medvedev out.
Very surprising, honestly. Medvedev, third seed at the moment, I think. He was beaten by little-known Taylor. Well, I won't say Taylor Fritz is little-known. Taylor Fritz has been. He's been one of those people who've been consistent in the last few years, and perhaps it might be. One could say that perhaps Medvedev is just using this to get back into the Grand Slam, and he doesn't want to overstretch himself, as opposed to a Taylor Fritz who is ready to win. He was ready to win a circuit tournament. So kudos to Taylor Fritz. And for Tsitsipas, Tsitsipas is a bit different from Medvedev. Tsitsipas virtually wants to win every game he plays. But he was taught by, what's his name, Holger Dun or something of a sort. And that's not a name that is quite popular in the tennis world. So it must be that you have these relatively upcoming players who want to get a shot into the top 20 and who are trying to show that, look, they're not going to take the big boys for granted. So I think it's a call, and it will be nice to see what the semi-final offers. But Medvedev and Tsitsipas will have to take this back and try to sharpen, where their failures may have played out.
Djokovic. Let's talk about Djokovic. That was also dumped by Lorenzo Musetti.
Djokovic, again, I'm very wary of Djokovic, particularly when Djokovic posts the most wins at circuit tournaments, in the world. And, he for me, as I said, you get to this stage, you want to pace yourself. You don't want to stretch yourself. You don't want injuries. And if you have to lose a Monte Carlo Masters that you've won time and time again, for the records, honestly, it's nothing. But I'm sure he's trying to. Djokovic is he likes to play mind games, and this is the kind of mind games he will play. He will just leave the scene when the ovation is loudest, concentrate more on. Remember, he's chasing another Nadal record. He wants to tie that 22. So for me, I think because he knows he's going to find a very stiff opposition at the French Open in Alcaraz, in Tsitsipas, in Medvedev. So for him, I think he's just taking it slow and easy. He's just cruising on this, on this circuit tournaments, and honestly, when we come to those big Grand Slams, you're going to see a different Djokovic.
Okay, but what does this mean now for the likes of Medvedev and Tsitsipas? We've always talked about them challenging and taking over from the likes of Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. Now,
good question, because you see, in the days of the Federers and the Nadals and Djokovic, who is still very much on, you will find that they dominated this Master Series. The records are there. They dominated it, 100%. For you to take a Nadal or a Federer or a Djokovic out in one of these Masters series, you have to play your skin out, because for them, they want to develop a fear factor going into the Grand Slam. So right now, you'll find out that most of these Masters and circuit tournaments are in a state of flux. You will see that today it is Jack Skinner who's winning, tomorrow is Alcaraz, tomorrow is a Medvedev. In that time, there were only 3 possible winners for these Masters. It is either Djokovic or Federer or Nadal. So that is why you'll find out that they all keep beating themselves silly, one after the other, because there is no fear factor. I think as it is now, the number one spot is still in a flux. We don't know who is dominating. I think Djokovic should be given some kudos, because being an old guy that he is still very much sticking his head into the number one spot. So what it means is that, honestly, it makes every Grand Slam open.
And in the female category, Ons Jabeur was finally, she laid a hand on a trophy last weekend. And looking at that French Open, what does this promise for the women category?
Honestly, Ons Jabeur is I will say, the number one contender for the next Grand Slam, which is the French Open. She's been knocking 2 Grand Slam finals, 1 Grand Slam final, 1 semi-final, 1 final, now a final in one of the circuit games. I think she is the most qualified female player to win. The Swiatecs. I think they are getting. They're beginning to. I think there's just some rainbow that is, going over all of them, except for the Eastern Europe girl who won the last the Australian Open, who is still very much in town. But I think on Jabeur, honestly, she's the most qualified outsider, so to speak, and a number one contender to win. She's been for the African experience. I think she's become a rallying point for female African players. That look, you can get to the top, and I want to believe that if she gets a shot at this French Open, she should be in the last 4 at least, if she's not in the finals.
Okay, you're still listening to Sports Update on Lagoon Radio. We'll go on this short break. When we come back, it will be time to take a review of what happened in the Champions League and UEFA Europa League. Keep listening to us. We'll be right back after this break. Yes, that's the sound of tension. Whenever you hear that sound, you know that something big is coming from Europe in the world of football. Okay, let's start off from what transpired on Tuesday. Is the Champions League. And let's start with Benfica. Yes, they lost at home. A lot of people said surprisingly to Inter Milan.
Surprisingly, yes, because Benfica has been quite a dominant side in the opening rounds. Sorry, into the knockout phases, and coming into the quarterfinal, I think they just there's something about the Champions League, and I think it keeps playing out. When you're an outsider, when I say an outsider, when you're not in the constant semi-final or the constant quarterfinal, you're coming in maybe once in 5 years. Those who have played those semi-finals over time consistently, no matter how bad they are, they seem to have something, that look, it's just 2 legs. We need to keep it simple, keep it tight. And that was what Inter did. Inter didn't have a great side that day. Mm-hmm. And yours truly, Lukaku, came in, scored as well. And you honestly can't find where Benfica got it wrong. But they just didn't get, they were fluffing their chances. They couldn't get to the final third. So I think the Champions League has become that competition where it is experience that dictates it. And, you look at Inter's Mourinho, and this team reminds you of that Mourinho's Inter, when they were never favorites to win anything, but they got to that final and they won it against all odds. So I think honestly, I think a lot of us are underrating Inter. When it comes to this stage, honestly, it is anybody's taken. So I am particularly not surprised, and it's looking done and dusted for Benfica for me.
And the biggest game that day was Manchester City versus Bayern.
Absolutely. I think it's the biggest game of the entire week. And, Bayern Munich, who's just got Tuchel into the coaching, mastership against a wicked side, Pep, and absolutely, Pep has let nobody in that look. This is the only thing left for him in City, and because he needs to, he believes that, look, the only thing that is required for him to prove his mettle he's a top class coach, no doubt, but he still needs the validation of winning the Champions League with Man City. And against who? Against the Tuchel. Tuchel said before the match, he said it's been difficult for him to sleep, knowing that he's playing against the Pep side, whom he knows is going to work hard, but that what he's going to do is that they're going to try to work as hard as they could to make sure that they get something good out of that game. Unfortunately, it was never to be. 3 goals against the City. It's going to be very, very, very difficult to turn a 3-0 deficit against the Pep Guardiola side. And if you still have Erling Haaland, who is going to be a nuisance in your defense, honestly, I don't see Bayern coming back. But again, as I said, this is the Champions League. On that night, when you hear that anthem play, we have seen a 4-0 lead between Barcelona and
Liverpool.
Yes, against Liverpool, for example.
Barcelona PSG.
Yes, Barcelona PSG. So when it comes to South Champions League, as I said, when it comes to experience, people like Bayern Munich, and when you have a Tuchel, anything can just happen.
Okay, Remy joins us on the show. And Remy, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yes, we are just talking about the Champions League, and we've looked at what transpired on Tuesday. Okay, now Napoli, AC Milan.
Well, both teams have been battling it out for a couple of weeks now. Recall the match, the league match between Napoli and AC Milan, where we thought that it would be one of those roller coasters for Napoli, and they lost badly to AC Milan. But I think at the Champions League level, one of the things we probably have noticed is the lack of bite in the last game that they played, maybe because Osimhen wasn't playing. But then I think Napoli will still be able to edge this, although it's going to be very close. We all know AC Milan, this is a team that is traditional, a team that believes it can do it, and a team that has been in some kind of resurgence for a while now. Young players, they're exciting, and it will be good to see AC Milan. They're back in the Champions League. It's good to see them go very far. But I think this may just be an opportunity for Napoli to come back and then try to qualify for the next round. I think Napoli may just be able to get this through.
Well, do you see Napoli coming back to win this game, especially when the coach said that Osimhen will be fit for the rematch on Tuesday?
Yeah, the possibility is very, very high. Napoli are league leaders. I think that will give them some level of psychological advantage. I mean, Leao and the rest of the attacking team must be credited that there was only few chances available to them and they took that one. Napoli on the other side were quite guilty of fluffing away chances. And perhaps, I honestly think that the absence of Osimhen was quite felt. There's this number 9 that plays for them. I think his name is number 77, Kvaratskhelia. Prior to the game, when they were doing the prelim commentaries, you will find that he was likened to Maradona. And if you see most of the games that they have played this season, he supplied Osimhen with the most assists. And that day, you will find that he was looking for an Osimhen, you know, to kill off goals. Unfortunately, it wasn't happening with the striker they've got. So hopefully, if Osimhen gets in, and you can see what one player can do to the balance of a team. That day, the only thing that was required for Napoli was just to nick in a goal, and it never happened.
Okay.
I mean, it just tells you why Napoli paid so much to have Osimhen in the team, and a number of people question the transfer fee. Now we know that it's worth every bit of it, and maybe even more.
Okay, well, your team, Real Madrid.
Against Chelsea. So a lot of us thought it was going to be an easy ride, and
a whitewash.
But look, listen. When you play a team like Chelsea that is down, they need no fall. They were just going to come and, as much as possible, keep a clean sheet. That was what they did actually that day. And if you saw, it was becoming difficult as the attackers were going in. They couldn't get their passes in the final third. At some points, Vinicius got a bit frustrated. They knew that, look, to get Real Madrid on the back foot, just keep Vinicius away from the final third. He got a yellow card out of frustration as well. But you see, when you have an intelligentsia like Luka Modric, who will find spaces, you will see one or two things open up in the defense, and that happened. 2-0, I think it's still not over. I like what Ancelotti said. He said, look, we are not going to go into Stamford Bridge thinking that we are leading. We are going to play that game as if it's still level, and that is for me, that is the mentality of a champion coach. He wants to make sure that, look, they just dominate play. But Chelsea is going to have to do a lot of work, because now they have to score 2 goals. Now, in trying to score 2 goals, you're going to have most of your markers going up front. You're going to open up spaces for people like Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr., and we know what those two can do.
Okay, and after the game, Lampard praised his players, but he said it's not yet over. That we can see. We'll see what will happen at Stamford Bridge. Any hope of Chelsea getting back?
No, as long as you have the opportunity to play a second leg, there's always the hope. And you would expect that something good will happen. Lampard, he's been there, he's done that, he's won the Champions League. He knows how it feels. You recall the match they played, I'm not sure whether it was Inter or Barcelona, where they had...
It was Barcelona.
Where towards the end, they had almost nicked the result, and that mistake by Essien, and that was it, against Barcelona. And I think it was... I can't recall who scored. So he knows there's always the opportunity. But then when you look at the current assembly of players in Chelsea, their mindset and the changes that they've had over time, you can almost tell that this might be difficult. And Benga said you have to come out guns blazing, and you need to score 3 goals in order for you to move ahead and then qualify, or you go into extra time. The challenge is that Vinicius is playing, Modric is playing, we have the likes of Benzema. We saw what the Real Madrid team did last season against all odds, and they got the goals they needed. And they're playing under a coach who, you must admit, this is one of the best coaches in history, and he's someone that is highly respected. Yes, they are going into the game with the right mentality. We don't want to be complacent. We just want to take it as it comes. But it is a very difficult one for Chelsea. All they need to do is concede a goal, and then the mountains will just be too high for them to climb.
Absolutely.
And Ancelotti, well respected. In fact, the 4 teams in the quarterfinals have been coached by Ancelotti.
Yes. I mean, that tells you the caliber of coach that he is. And he's someone who he has walked his talk. So in truth, there's not much that he needs to prove. But then as long as he's there, as long as he's going to be able to add value, you know that he's always going to get those 3 points when it's needed. And this season, it's been a struggle in the league. They're about 12 points or 11 points behind Barcelona. This is one thing they would like to have going for them, going at least into the finals of the Champions League. And is that good a coach?
Okay, we'll see how that turns out next week. Okay, and in the other side of Europe, Manchester United, for the record time, they failed to get a win over Sevilla. 2-2 it ended. Sevilla 2-0 down in the first half, came back and drew the game. A lot of people have blamed the captain, Harry Maguire, for what happened in the game. So, but that game.
No, but look, it's strange that they ended up with a draw. I mean, towards the end of the game, it was practically 3 points. They played well. They dominated. We had said last week that Sevilla, they're very good at this tournament. They've won it back to back in the past. And they're confident playing in these kinds of games. But then Manchester United, under this new coach, playing at home, you expected that they would deliver. And they did, up until towards the end of the game. Silly goals, mistakes being considered, own goals, and unfortunately, if you end up losing a 2-goal lead in the manner in which it happened, hopefully you would go into the next match or into the second leg with confidence. They can really do it. I still believe Manchester United should be able to beat Sevilla. I mean, going by the way they played, you would expect that they would do well. Unfortunately, you really cannot give excuses for what happened. 2-0, and you ended up with 2-2. Not because you were not playing well, but because of lapses in the defense. And you have to question those goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game Man United dominated, for a good 70, 75 minutes. And, in just those final moments, you will wonder what kind of indiscipline in marking and in game management must have happened. And for me, what worries me is the fact that the second leg, they're going to the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan, and that stadium, on a European night, it's like a UCL for them. Sevilla have become the Real Madrid of Europa League. And, it's as if they stick some water, that just tells them that, look, whoever you're playing in, you're going to win. Unfortunately for Man United, they're going to be without some regulars. I think Bruno is out. I'm not sure the defender, Martinez is injured, and Rashford is not particularly sure to play. It's a lot of regular. So the team is going to come with some players who may not have the kind of mentality that you require to play a team like Sevilla. But honestly, it's still very, very open. On those nights, anything can happen.
And Juventus getting one over Sporting CP, but a lot of people have said it's not yet over because they are going to.
All. I don't think Juve themselves were quite convincing as much as they won the game. They still have a lot to prove. But I mean, they will suffer the advantage going into the second leg, to just make sure that they keep it tight as much as possible. But they're playing a team, that is also fearless. They play open. So I think next week just offers, and I love these second leg games because anything can just happen.
And Feyenoord, a repeat of the Conference League finals. Feyenoord getting one over AS Roma. And Mourinho was furious after that game on his players.
Oh, yes, he definitely had a right to be. I mean, you can see him sitting down where he sat and he wasn't very happy at all. And Mourinho, he does not like when chances are lost. And he likes to play a compact game. He does not want careless mistakes. He does not want goals which could have been avoided. And this at this stage of the competition, all you need is an error and you're out of it. And so you have to be disciplined. And sometimes you can't blame the coaches. This is their livelihood. And then you speak to the players, they get onto the pitch, and other things start to happen, and you're wondering what's going on here. It's quite unfortunate, and we would love to see Mourinho come back and start to win silverware, and this is the opportunity he has. It's a tough one, but he's likely to still make it through. Hopefully there won't be any challenges in the dressing room with maybe when he gets upset with some of the players, but I hope he can manage this and at least try and get them across the board.
Okay, and the other rower ranking, the Conference League, a Nigerian, Terry Murphy, got a brace. Yes, in Nice 2-2 draw against Barca. And West Ham struggling, but they got a result against Gent. 1-1 it ended. Is Moyes still staying?
Well, we really don't know. From the league to the Conference League or Conference tournament, it's a challenge. And I think he's probably struggling. And you also have to consider that the pressure at home, in the home front, is high. Pressure playing continental is also high, and if you're not getting the results, look, people don't take any prisoners these days. And I think at the level of his career, he also knows that if I cannot bring silverware on board, then maybe I may continue to struggle in the clubs that I get to. But because of his clout, you expect that he will always get a club. But I think it's about time he got some silverware. It's a challenge, but then not losing is good. But then can they scale through by the time they play the second leg?
And no matter. Okay. There's a bit of greatness in every man. There's power to rise.
Yes, sir, the power of Nigeria and the Super Falcons, they exhibited that power. Some people said, well, it's good they are back. They defeated Haiti and the co-host, New Zealand. 3-0 they got against New Zealand. We saw the effect of Tissayo Paranozie and the Asisato Shola. In fact, it was a very different Super Falcons. Any hopes for the World Cup?
Yes, we will always be hopeful. A good turnout for them. It's good to see Okparanozie coming back and scoring. She scored, I think, the third goal, I believe.
Yes.
And the team played quite well. And if you're playing a co-host, it means that at least you're playing against good opposition. They played Haiti. We thought they struggled in the second half. They could have also ended up with a draw, a loss. But then, good one. And we expected a better outing against New Zealand. And they came out doing very well. Yes, we're hopeful. We believe they can still be consistent and then take their chances. Okparanozie, I think maybe a bit of rustiness, but then I'm sure she can get over it. But a very good result for them. And I think the team should be encouraged. Like we always say, we hope there will be no administrative bottlenecks. There will be no political concerns, and the team can be allowed to go there. The coach giving all the support required for them to deliver. At least they should be able to get to the quarterfinals.
You see, what I think, and I like the way Remy puts it. I mean, I like what you also said. We're trying to see the effect of the likes of Okparanozie and Asisato Swadla, who didn't play the African Championships. Particularly for me is the fact that there was a lady called Ifeoma Onumonu who was the top striker at that tournament. She couldn't, measure up to the kind of expectation that we wanted.
Papilo.
So honestly, I think it's a time for Waldrum to school her, to let her see what people like Oswala are bringing to the table. She needs to start learning because the girl has got the frame, she's got the build. She only so for me, I think I'm trying to see the Super Falcons in another 2-3 years time. I want to see the kind of Super Eagles that we had in '94, where you had choices. You were spot for choices to choose who to play which position, and I think that's where Waldrum needs to take us to. Build two players around a particular position, and then you just sit back and relax. But going into that World Cup, I think it's going to be very tough. But then we have the hope to go into it believing that we will get something out of it.
Okay, still on Nigerian. Nigerian Emmanuel Amunike, who a lot of Nigerians have clamored to take over in the Super Eagles, was sacked over the week by Zanaco, the Zambian club, after not winning 8 games.
Well, I don't know whether it was Alex Ferguson or someone who said it years ago that, look, there are 2 types of coaches. Coaches who have been sacked and coaches who are yet to be sacked.
Moriho.
So I guess it's been a tough one for Amunike. This is not the first time he would lose his job. I think he had gone to coach the national team some years back, and he was doing well. All of a sudden, he went out of favor. Then he's also coached the junior team in Nigeria. I guess we can only urge him to continue. If big time coaches can be sacked, then anyone can be sacked. And you also cannot blame the club. When you have a string of losses, they need to take a decision. And so sometimes it's not about the competence or not or otherwise of the coach. It is the team looking at itself, looking at its chances, and looking at the string of results. And maybe they felt at the time that a change of guard may just be what will be required for them to move on. So, well, he shouldn't be displeased or disappointed. He just needs to move on, because I'm not aware of a coach that cannot be sacked, particularly if you've had a string of losses. So, I mean, it's not good, but then it means he can just do more.
Come to think of it, Lampard was sacked a few weeks ago. He became the Messiah Chelsea will turn to run them through the league. So, I mean, that a guy has been sacked over and over. I don't think in recent times anybody has been sacked more than as much as Mourinho. But, Mourinho retains his respect. And I think Amunike is not a bad coach, honestly. And I still think at some point he may be considered for the Nigerian job.
Okay, from there we'll move to the Nigerian Premier Football League, and today we'll be seeing some games. In Group A, Nasarawa United versus Gombe United, El Kanemi Warriors versus Shooting Stars tomorrow, Kwara United versus Enimba, one of the biggest games, and Plateau United versus Akwa United, Remo Stars will be playing Bendel Insurance. And in Group B, we'll have Abia Warriors will be playing Sunshine Stars of Akure, Bayelsa United versus Lobby Stars, and Toma United versus Wiki Tourists, Rivers United, Dakada FC. And in the week, Fatah Yosho left his role as assistant manager, or I don't know how the technical, he left the technical department of the Rivers United, and nothing have been said about it.
Well, you would expect that for a club that is playing a regional tournament, for a club that is the only shining light for Nigeria at that regional tournament, you would expect that by now there'll be some kind of statement from the club. Maybe it will come today, maybe it will come next week. We don't know the reason why, so maybe we shouldn't make assumptions. But it doesn't look very good when a team that is doing quite well, not only in the league but in the regional tournament, starts to lose members of their technical team. Maybe something is wrong. But then, well, I think it's good for us to focus on the league more and see things that are happening. I mean, you've talked about Kwara United and Enyimba. That promises to be an exciting game. Bendel Insurance and Remo. In the past week, we heard what happened to Remo Stars with the punishment from the organizing committee, the IMC, and I think it's a good development. Hopefully, such decisions will be consistent. And now, for you to win the league, you have to play well. Gone are the days of boardroom points where someone gets as much as 3 or 6 points in the boardroom. How does that happen? But now you can get sanctioned for, I mean, in the case of Remo Stars, the coach was said to have walked into the dressing room of the officials, and he said, well, he tried to explain it, but there's really no explanation. You have no right to be there. So whether you went there to threaten or not, the fact is, it is a restricted area, and it's good to see such punishments being handed out. We hope it will be consistent. In terms of the quality of play, it's an abridged league, but I think it's not been too bad. And in case we also remember, there's also going to be is this Super 8 or what have you, where people will have to vote in. I understand you get 3 million per game, and that's not bad. And if you're able to win the tournament, you win 24 million naira. It's a good start. And I think we should continue to follow the league and watch out for exciting stars. Maybe these will be people who will go into the national team, because it's unheard of that you have a national team and national and league players are not part of that team. I don't think it speaks well of the league.
And, for the qualifiers that we just played, the possibilities are that if we win our next game, we would have qualified.
And we won't need the
So I honestly don't see any reason why we will prosecute the last game if we don't win a win. We need a win with the Siemens and the rest. It will be a shame if we cannot assemble an 11-man team to prosecute our last game and even win it. It will be a shame.
Come back. You're still on to Lagoon Radio and this sports update, your number one online gospel radio in Nigeria. The official radio of the Anglican Diocese of Lagos, transmitting live from the Diocesan Media Center 29, Marina, Lagos. And yes, Sadio Mane will not be in the team when Bayern Munich plays Hoffenheim today because of what happened in the dressing room. He had a fight with
Leroy Sané.
Is that a good team spirit, or is that the frustration? Was it that they were frustrated because there are no official statement from Bayern, but for the way it is, they've made their case known. But Sadio Mane was alleged to have said that Leroy Sané kept on complaining in the field of play during that play. But for me, that is a show, is an act of professionals.
I mean, look, every player will complain. Ronaldo complains. If the other team players are not doing their bit, the coaches complain, the fans complain. But there is no reason for you to be physical. There's no need to assault a player. And I think Bayern Munich, they tried to play it cool, but then at least they made it clear that he will not be playing. That's a form of punishment, but I think it might go further than that. Don't forget that Bayern Munich is not a small club, and it's not a club that you cannot be bigger than the club at Bayern Munich. And for someone who's just come in and for you to assault a player, I'm not sure he's going to be there in the club for so long because people will probably speak out and want him out because there will be challenges in the dressing room, and you don't need the coach having to go through. I mean, they just sacked the coach. You have a new person on board. A player is assaulting another. There is no reason. After all, it's a team game. And if you had scored as well anyway, you wouldn't have lost to Real Madrid. But then you go into the dressing room and you assault a player. On a good day, I think even in the Premiership, it's possible that the sanctions may even have been higher than that. I mean, there are people who go out on an 8 or 5 game match ban. But then if you've assaulted a player, that player even has a right to press charges. So he needs to be careful. And I think he ought to have issued a public apology. You shouldn't give or make an excuse for doing something wrong. Assaulting a player, it's unnecessary and there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, I mean, well said, Remy. You see, I had seen, one of my friends had mentioned, that Mane has a tendency to be offish when they're not having a good day at the office. And at some point, it was alleged that he had probably switched off from Liverpool even before the invitation to come to Bayern came. And I think he's probably going through that, how would I put it? I'm not sure he's sure of himself in Bayern Munich. I'm not sure he's happy. I'm not sure he's not played so much games. He's not scored so much goals. I don't think he's become the cult hero that he was in Liverpool. And I'm beginning to think that it's beginning to weigh on his psychology. Perhaps not trying to blame others for his own woes. I believe, look, if you can't stay in that team, make a call. I can tell you on the tap of a finger, Klopp will welcome him back to Liverpool again. He's done so much for that club. But as Remy said, the least he could do as a gentleman is to issue a public apology.
Okay, let's look at the games for today in the Premier League. 12:30 Aston Villa, Newcastle, which promises to be a cracker. Yes, because of what is it called? The new coach of Aston Villa, Emery, had done, and Newcastle still pushing to get that Champions League ticket. Chelsea, Brighton, and Everton, Fulham. Southampton versus Crystal Palace. Tottenham versus Bournemouth. And Wolves will be playing Brentford. Manchester City versus Leicester. And Pep Guardiola has warned his players that lose Leicester, you may lose the trophy.
Look, Pep, the challenges is also. I think generally he's just laid down the marker for them. There will be no excuses this time around. You have just about 8 games or thereabout left. Arsenal is still topping the table, or they're still topping the table. Then you still have Newcastle. And I'm not sure people have noticed, Newcastle, they've only lost 3 games this season. And that's the same number of games Arsenal have also lost this season. So between Arsenal and Newcastle, they've lost the least number of games. Man City, they've lost 4 games. So people have to be careful. Newcastle, Aston Villa, we need to watch out for that. But I think generally, Man City, they need to take up all their points now. Arsenal, it's unusual for Arsenal. I mean, since Wenger left, it's unusual for them to have such a long run. Typically, by Christmas and January, they start to stumble. But that hasn't happened. And they're playing into April. They're still topping the league. Just about 8 games left. It's likely that this might be their season, except they have a blip along the way. But it promises to be, the next few weeks promises to be very exciting, and starts from today.
And talking about Arsenal, they will be in action tomorrow against West Ham, struggling West Ham. And also Arsenal, they have this record against West Ham, and Moyes himself is the London Derby they've won the most. And Moyes, he has lost the most to Arsenal. And now his boy, Arteta, is in charge of Arsenal.
You see, the interesting thing about this year's Premiership is that from the bottom to first, every game is interconnected. Interconnected because each team is going to affect the other's chances. Look at, I'm surprised you're not talking about Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur is 3 points just behind Manchester United in the 4th place. The 4th place of the Champions League is very critical. Now, Arsenal is going to they don't want to drop any points against the chasing City. Now, Pep is issuing a warning to his players for a Leicester City that is down and out. Leicester City believes they need 3 points to get off that floater in the relegation zone. There's a West Ham that is almost sinking and is playing the same Arsenal. And Moyes is going to be telling those players, look, I am on the firing line. Please, you need to go and do something. Now, there's a Newcastle that is playing today against a team that is relatively believing that it is coming up. That team is not going to fall. And the Newcastle, for me, like Remy said, they've only lost 3 games. It is a team everybody should look out for. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, I believe Newcastle still believes that the Premiership is still winnable for them. So is Man City. If Man City is Pep is telling his players that, look, if you lose today, we will lose the cup. It means he's telling them we are winning this league. So you see, from the bottom to the top, all the games are super connected, and that is what makes the Premiership. Honestly, you blink, you lose so much. I honestly wish I can sit down somewhere today and just be flicking my TV and seeing what's going on in every one of the Crystal Palace, who just sacked
Vera.
What's his name?
Patrick Vieira.
You can now see that Jordan Ayew is suddenly scoring. What's his name? The Nigerian-born guy,
Olise and
Eze. They are all, and you'll see that towards the end of this run, I hope Arsenal does not blink. If they blink, it is going to be a tears of woe again. So it promises to be a wow Saturday today.
Okay, and in this area, in the Spanish La Liga, Chukwueze and Villarreal, they'll be playing Real Valladolid. Atletico de Bilbao in a derby against Real Sociedad, and Real Betis Espanyol, Cadiz versus Real Madrid. Those games are today. And for tomorrow, you will see the likes of Barcelona in action. Yes, the last time they drew against lowly rated Girona. Girona will be in action against Elche. Getafe versus Barcelona, which also looks like another banana peel for them. And Atletico de Madrid, who has never lost since Felix switched over to Chelsea. They will be playing
we must be talking about Chukwueze, and his performance against Real Madrid. I think Chukwueze, that performance, if you didn't know Chukwueze before, you will call him another Vinicius Junior. The way he took the Real Madrid defense on. For me, it was the confidence. It was the confidence with which he ran through that defense without minding what will happen. And, it was not a bad Madrid side. It was a Madrid side, that had a full complement. And the way he made nonsense of Nacho for the second goal, honestly, was fantastic. He turned him left, right. The guy showed his number and he slot the ball through Courtois. And, the question I need to ask Nigeria is, what are we doing with Chukwueze? There must be something wrong with the way we are playing. Chukwueze ran that game ragged for Villa. He took it on his own without anything, and you could see the confidence with it. Is it our stadium? Is it our weather? Is it the style of play? I've been watching the highlights of that game since, and I'm trying. Is this the same Chukwueze who wears the green from Nigeria?
Well, I mean, maybe the incentives are different. Maybe the circumstances are different, because when you play in a club that has maybe 30, 35 registered players, you know, if you're not doing well, you will be relegated to the bench, and it might be difficult for you to get your first team shirt. In the Eagles, I'm not sure there's much competition, unfortunately. I mean, his performance in our last 2 games were not so good. We fluffed too many chances. And, I mean, look at the goal he scored over the week, and look at the way he's played with the national team. He's been very inconsistent in the national team. Maybe it's the coaching, maybe it's the players, maybe, like I said, there's really no incentive in terms of competition. Hopefully he'll be able to bring that on board. But a very good week for Chukwueze.
Okay, and an unusual scene in the Spanish La Liga, Valencia, Sevilla, fighting relegation. They will be in action tomorrow. Yeah. Valencia is 18. Sevilla moved up to 13th, but it's not safe for them. They have 31 points. Sevilla, 27
It's
points.
going to be a dogfight. Dogfight, because these are 2 teams with a relative, what I would call the La Liga spirit. I mean, they will ordinarily be in the top 4. Valencia, maybe in the last few years, 6, 7, but now they're both struggling for their lives. And, you know, they've sacked 2 coaches in the season already, you know. So it's going to be a dogfight. I hope there won't be blood, on the stadium tomorrow. But then it promises, it's one I'm going to try to watch, because both teams are seriously struggling, you know.
And in the Italian Serie A, Lecce will be against Sampdoria, Torino, Salernitana, and Sassuolo versus Juventus, who are still struggling to pick up or qualify for Europe next season. Roma versus Udinese. Those ones will be today. And tomorrow, we'll see the likes of Napoli. Okay, Napoli will be in action today. Yes, Napoli's game is today. They will be playing. Okay, Verona. Napoli, Verona, and Bologna versus AC Milan, Inter Milan. In fact, the 3 teams that are still in the Champions League will be playing today: Bologna, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Monza, and Inter. They've not won in the domestic league for over 3 games.
In fact, that's made them slip into the 5th position so quickly that Roma just climbed, into the 3rd or 4th place. And honestly, Inter, you look at the display they had against Benfica away from home, on Tuesday, and you start to wonder. The Champions League at the league, sometimes, you don't know how to place a team. Inter struggling at the domestic league, and yet putting up such a fantastic performance against Benfica. It just shows how telling, the toll the season is taking on these players. But I won't take it past Inter. I think they could still slip into the top 4, particularly if Roma falters today.
And in the Bundesliga, looking at the table, Bayern Munich, Dortmund, and Union Berlin, who have slipped to 3rd. They have 51 points now. Dortmund 56, and Bayern Munich 58. It's also looking like it's going to end Bayern Munich's way again this season.
Well, in case it does, people will simply say, well, there's no surprise there. And we recall that Dortmund broke that string of wins for Bayern Munich. And then hopefully maybe someone will be able to challenge them. Sometimes it's not so exciting if one club is always looking the likely winners of the league, season in, season out. But then it's been quite tough for them this time around. Yes, we've spoken about money and some of the challenges they may have in the dressing room. Hope they'll be able to overcome it. At least we know Bayern Munich will definitely still qualify for the Champions League next season, no matter what happens here. But then they need to... It would be good to see them win the league again to prove themselves, but then Dortmund are very close behind.
And there's a little matter of Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
Who do you think he's going to sign for?
Maybe Real Madrid.
I think he's going to go to City.
Okay.
Where the money is.
Maybe Phillips out, Bellingham in.
Yeah.
Bellingham in. Okay. And that's where we'll leave it this morning on today's edition of Sports Update on Lagoon Radio. Thank you, Remy, for coming on the show. And thank you, Benga, for being on the show too.
Thank you.
Also, thank you for listening to us. Next week, the show returns on Saturday, 11 a.m. And thanks to our producer, Ernest Diva, for pressing the right buttons. See you again next week. From me, Anosike Chimeze, is goodbye and enjoy your weekend.